Hey, this is James Rolfe, and we're talking about Judas Priest. The new album Firepower just came out less than a week ago, and I just happened to have seen them live on the first date of the tour, and it was pretty awesome. So let's talk about it.
And if you've got another think coming, then you are ready for this episode of Discography Discussion. I am Joe, that is Dan, that is Jeff. James Rolfe of Cinemassacre stopped by after seeing Judas Priest live, and he decided to talk about Firepower, Painkiller, British Steel, and everything in between. So before we get into that, I'm going to go ahead and say thank you to everyone for listening to the podcast. Thank you for listening and for subscribing. If you are not a subscriber, you can find everything Discography Discussion at discussmetal.com. We are on Google Play, iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, so if you have an Amazon Echo or a Google Home, you have no excuse. Ask it to play the latest episode of the Discography Discussion podcast, and it will. We're also on Facebook and on Twitter at Discuss Metal. Be sure to like, favorite, and subscribe. It really helps us out. It lets us know you're listening. And now Dan is going to tell you all about 5-star reviews.
We love 5-star reviews here on Discography Discussion. We've actually added functionality now to our Facebook page where you can leave us a review right on Facebook. If you go to facebook.com/discography discussion, you can leave us a starred review of however you feel about the podcast, and we will read it on the show. We actually have a nice 5-star review from Facebook this week from Brian Dean. Brian says, the majestic trio of Dan, the hardcore man, Emo Jeff, and Dubstep Joe bring all the knowledge you'll ever need about the bands you know and love. Love the show. Well, thank you very much, Brian. I'm sure you'll be hearing from Jeff's lawyer about him being Emo Jeff. I think it's time we talk to James Rolfe.
Hey,
what's going on? I bet you're tired.
A little bit, not too bad, but yeah. Yeah, I have witnessed the priest unload the firepower.
Oh my God!
Oh shit,
man! I'm excited / jealous because this is such a good album.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, when that thing dropped, I mean, it's here's the thing. I expected it to be good.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't expect it to be this good. Just for the age of the band, and you wonder like. I mean, their last one, Nostradamus, wasn't too bad either,
Mm-hmm.
But this is like old school Priest, but it sounds super modern,
It does, yeah.
Perfect job of going power metal and hard rock. It just they walk that line perfectly on this album.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's a lot of like a little bit more like British Steel, kind of like has like a hook to it, it's more like going for like a radio kind of hit, but still keeping a lot of that edge.
It's still metal as fuck, but yeah.
Yeah. Do you guys have a favorite song on the album?
Oh, out of the 3 times I've listened to it, I'm still stuck on Firepower, just right off the fucking bat.
Yeah.
Necromancer for me.
I have to admit, like anthemic in the car, top of the lungs, never the heroes, man. I love singing that at the top of my lungs in the car.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think Firepower is still my favorite.
Yeah, it's probably the best song on there, but I don't know what it is, but it's just so easy to sing along to Never the Heroes.
It is.
I was amazed that in 2018 there's a Judas Priest record that sounds like every good thing they did previous with modern influence.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody else take notes, because good God, these guys are 67 plus and they're still doing it.
Yeah, it did seem like they slowed down for a while. Like after Nostradamus, they kind of just didn't do much for a little while, but then they came back with Redeemer of Souls, and then I was just like, holy shit, like this is just amazing. And then it's like, wait a minute, we're getting another one now? And then Firepower comes out. It's just been like, they've been on.
Was Rob able to pull it off?
Yeah, and for the listeners, I was actually at the first date of the show, the first day of the tour last night. Halford, you could tell he was ready. Like he was just waiting for this. Like they came out swinging. I mean, you can tell when he's in a good mood just by the parts in the songs where he's not singing and like how much is he moving around. because I've seen him a bunch of times now, and every once in a while there's one where it's like, he'll walk off the stage during the solo or something, just because, like, I don't know, maybe he's like had to go to the bathroom or who knows, but like this was one, he was just totally like on it the whole night.
Yeah, he found Ozzy's bucket.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm glad listening to the album. It's the only time I think that he shows his age is actually when he's using his falsetto. His chest voice is still just like, you can't tell that's an older man up there, that he sounds still fresh and young. It sounds great. I mean, the only time, and it's just a hint of it a little bit on the falsetto. It's really not that bad. So I'm glad he was able to pull it off in person, because I was going to ask you how much of Firepower is studio and how much was that still Rob, and it sounds like that was still Rob.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Especially, my favorite recent song there is actually Halls of Valhalla from Redeemer of Souls. Like, that one, to me, that's like one of the greatest hits in my opinion. Like, the falsettos on that one are just like ridiculous. Battle Cry, that one's pretty crazy. But talking about the new one, I wanted to comment on it. I loved his clothing. Like, just, he always comes out with these like new like fashions and everything. Like, he had this one outfit that was like silver. That was like, it was silver as fuck. It looked like you just melted down a bunch of steel and like formed it to his body.
He was wearing chrome, basically.
Yeah, he was basically just like wearing chrome, and like it kind of reflected off of like all the light and everything.
Oh, that's cool.
That
so
was
it's
really
like
awesome.
Robert Patrick from Terminator 2.
Almost, yeah. Almost like the T-1000.
Nice.
This is the T-1001.
Yeah. The only thing I didn't think about till now, but the only thing missing from the show was pyro. Not that it matters, I don't care, but for an album called Firepower, you think there'd be tons of pyro, and maybe because it's the first night of the tour, maybe they just didn't have the pyro, all set up yet.
Yeah, I expected on flamethrower, pull out an actual flamethrower, but yeah.
Yeah, actually.
This isn't a Rammstein show.
Right,
Dan.
I know. It's like people might
Well, there
die.
is
Yeah,
a
it'd be bad,
flamethrower is one of the songs on there, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
So my favorite question to ask about every concert is, what song did you hear that you didn't expect them to play?
Wow, you know what? If anybody who's going to the show, I'll keep it a secret, just in case, like, because if you want to know, anybody could look up the set list, but how easy it is nowadays. Like, the whole show's on YouTube already, all that. So
Of course, yeah. I know we're doing later.
yeah. But I will say, though, if you're going to the show and you want it, you want it to be secret, I will tell you that you're going to have some really cool surprises. Like, really, like, they really dug deep. Like, not only was it, seeing the live debut of their new songs, but I also saw the live debut of some old songs that they've never played live before.
Live debut of some old songs.
Yeah,
Are we talking like going all the way back to like Rock-a-Rolla kind of old,
No,
or
probably not that old.
pretty. I mean, not quite that old, but almost there.
but older than Hellbent and for Leather? Okay, I'm guessing.
Yeah. It was like, it seemed like this set list was I mean, if you're like a new fan, or if you're or just the average person maybe who doesn't know, who hasn't listened to every single thing from their entire catalog, I don't think it's the best set list for the beginner, but for like an old school fan, like it's like you're just gonna get all these like cool treats, like as soon as like a song starts, I'm like, wait, this is happening, really?
Oh, that's so awesome.
That's cool.
See, now you got me curious. I just want to start asking, but we're going to keep it a secret.
No, we'll keep it a secret. So how long did they play? Was it like 2 hours or?
Yeah, it was probably like 2 hours, something like that. And there was Black Star Riders and Saxon were the opening bands.
Oh, hell
Saxon.
yeah. I didn't know
Nice.
Saxon. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
I didn't know I was seeing Saxon until like, because I was looking on their site, I was trying to figure out who are the opening bands, and then so I just go to the show. I'm like, all right, whatever, and see what happens. And then like the curtain goes up and it says Saxon on it. I'm like, no.
Oh shit. Well, yeah, for a band like Judas Priest, it's not like they're pulling some locals in, for that. So that's crazy that you get a band like Saxon on there.
Yeah, it's really appropriate. Just like another one of the classic British bands with the dual guitar attack that they all kind of pioneered.
That's what I love about the old British power metal, and it's actually one of the things that I like about the melodic death metal that came out of Sweden too. Is I like that dual guitars, man. That just that gets you going every time. I don't think Priest is going to be coming to our area, but we found out that Slayer is coming to our area.
Yeah, we're about to go see, what is it? Slayer,
Napalm Death,
Lamb of God, Napalm Death,
Anthrax,
Testament, and
Anthrax.
So that's gonna be a hell of a show too. It's Slayer's farewell tour.
So yeah,
their farewell tour.
Yeah. Farewell.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd get to the day where I'm hearing about Slayer's farewell tour.
I don't know. Don't you feel old?
It's a weird feeling.
That is weird.
I remember when Slayer was like the scariest band you could talk about to people, like
yeah.
you wear a Slayer shirt, to a public gathering and people are talking about it, and now they're like, yeah, we're too old, we're done doing it, but that's not the case with Priest. I mean,
man, they're still going strong.
Oh, new guitarist, Andy Sneap. Well, he's because Glenn has the Parkinson's disease, which he's had for a long time, but I guess now it's caught up where it's to do. I mean, he laid down the album and it's phenomenal, but
right.
I think to do all those shows, to commit to a full tour, I guess it was too much. So he's replaced with Andy Sneap. But Glenn is still apparently working on the next studio stuff. So that's kind of an interesting way to like divide and conquer. Like have a separate guitarist for the touring, and then your original guitars can still work in the studio. It's pretty interesting.
All the guitar nerds are wondering, how did Andy Sneap do last night, James?
Good. Yeah, really good. It was odd that it was like strange seeing him up there with them, but it's totally, they made the right decision. If Glenn couldn't do it, then it was good that they had somebody who they worked close with. Because from what I understand, he was one of the producers on the album, or an engineer.
Andy Sneap is a pretty well-known record producer in metal albums, and that's why whenever I read, I think you told me, James, was Andy Sneap was coming on. It was like right before I read it, and I was like, okay, well that's obviously the best choice, and that this guy is versatile. And
I approve of this substitution.
Yeah, I really hope that I really hope he had a look on his face, during the concert of like, holy shit, I'm on stage playing with Judas Priest, because if you're a metal producer now, that's got to be a lifelong dream, right? I mean, that's
yeah.
Here's to give you an idea. Of course, there's Priest, but there's also Accept, Saxon, Opeth, Amon Amarth, Arch Enemy, Exodus, Megadeth, Cataclysm, Creator, Nevermore, and Testament. I mean, he's got some chops.
He knows his shit. Yeah.
Yes, he does.
Yeah. But there was another producer on the album too, Tom Allum, who was one of the old-time producers. So it's two guys like co-produce it, or like, I'm not really sure.
I'm sure Andy Sneap probably assisted more with like the recording engineering side of it.
Okay.
But I believe the other producer, Tom, I believe he's done several of the old Judas Priest albums.
Yeah, they apparently brought back the same producer, but then they brought back like the artist who did the cover and everything. So
yeah, you can see that too. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's very classic Priest, because I haven't got the vinyl yet. I ordered it recently, but whenever I get it in the mail, I mean, it's going to go right alongside of Painkiller and Ram It Down, and like it's going to fit. It's going to look great.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it was just like a strange thing just to see another guy, because now both their guitarists are replacements. So it's kind of I don't know. It's interesting just the fact that like the only original members were Halford and Ian Hill, which, well, even if you really want to get technical, there was a singer before Halford.
Yeah, but he wasn't on he wasn't on the album.
He wasn't on British Steel. It doesn't count. No.
Yeah, he wasn't on any of the albums, but Al Atkins. But you could potentially keep a band going for eternity if you just keep changing out members all the time.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at Kiss. I mean, Kiss is basically like essentially a new Kiss. Like, you still got Gene Simmons in there, but like it's still like almost a different band entirely.
Yeah, but it is disappointing. I mean, it's I'm not gonna lie. It's like to see both of their guitarists now, not on stage. But I think they made the right decision. It happened like just before a tour, and but it was kind of just like strange that I think he's the only one who doesn't look like a Judas Priest member. Like Richie Faulkner's kind of like he fit the look too. Andy Sneap has a totally different look to him.
Right.
So he did seem like he was there to I don't know how to say this, but it just seemed like he wasn't there to show off. He wasn't there to like make a big deal or anything. He was there just to like do his role, and he to just perform. It was good.
Almost like it was important to present Judas Priest. It's not about me. It's about these guys. I love these guys. You love these guys.
Yeah.
And I'm the lucky bastard that's up on stage with them.
There you go.
Well, that was definitely how I know Tim the Ripper Owens felt back in the day when he was, for the 2 albums that he fronted.
Yeah.
I went back and I listened to it. It's not as good as I remember.
Oh, I love Jugulator.
Yeah, Jugulator was good, but what's the other one? Demolition?
There's like maybe 3 really killer songs on it. There's probably a lot of weaker tracks on it, but there's at least 3. Machine Man and...
He just didn't show off enough of, especially on Demolition, just didn't show off enough of his range. Because after hearing him in Iced Earth, I think I was probably geeking out because I was such a big fan of his with the other bands that he had been with before Priest. Mm-hmm. And listening to it, and I was just like, the Halford stuff is just better.
Well, for those listening, Tim Ripper Owens was actually the singer in a Judas Priest cover band called British Steel, and then it just so happened that he ended up singing for the real band. I mean, that's like one of the most inspirational fan stories you could have. My first time seeing Priest was with Ripper in like 2001 or 2002, and I remember they were playing smaller venues there. So my first time seeing Priest was at the Electric Factory in Philly, which is like small, like little like warehouse, and you can get really close if you get there early enough. I mean, I don't know, it's a little bit different now, but there's an area where you can get that's like on a balcony that's to the side of the stage where you're so close you're practically on top of the stage, like you really are. So it was like face to face with Judas Priest, but it wasn't Halford. But still, it was amazing. But once Halford came back, then it was kind of different. Then because then it's like you're seeing them in big arenas again, and then it's like, oh, now I can't get that lucky now they're back with Halford.
Right, you're not going to get that intimate experience.
Oh no, the stadium must hold at least 30,000.
So how is the difference for you? Because I know there's some bands that they play intimate settings much better than they would like an arena. I mean, granted, it's fronted by 2 different individuals, but it is a collective whole. Do you think that one was better than the other as far as a live experience?
Yeah, I mean, the best Judas Priest concert experience I had was the one with Ripper because of how intimate it was. Like insanely intimate, like making eye contact with the members of the band. And like I remember Scott Travis when he was like drumming, he always does this thing where he like juggles his drumsticks and he's throwing them up in the air and he's juggling, and we're just looking at him like, wow, that's so cool. And then he kind of just looked right over at us and just kind of gave us a nod like, yeah, you like that, what's up.
Nice.
And Ripper, like, he'd like come over and then he'd just be like, like headbanging with us, and like it was just like that. Every concert after that is like a chaser. Now I'm never gonna get that same. I saw Metallica once that close, but
wow.
Now it's like impossible to.
Oh yeah, you've got about 12 feet between you and the front of the stage.
Not unless you want to drop $400 for a ticket, something like that. Yeah.
Do you want to be in the snake pit, James? Yes. Do you really want to be in the snake pit, James? Yes.
Like $1,000.
$5,000.
Yeah. Oh my God! I tried. Well, first of all, so they just did not to change the subject to Metallica, but they just announced the World Wired tour. So this is like another leg of the touring off the new album, and they seem to be like playing like all different cities that they've never played, I guess. Like they're kind of hitting like spots that they wouldn't normally go to. And I tried to get some tickets, and the prices jumped so much from one year to the last, because I saw them last year. But this year, for some reason, it's more expensive than it's ever been. I saw like $600 for like, floor and stuff. I mean, some of those are resellers, but still, I think it was like maybe $400 before the resellers. But you also can't even get them if you're lucky enough to even get the tickets to even have a chance to buy them. But I don't know. There's no way I'm paying that much for Metallica.
Right.
You know, a friend of ours once said when we were talking about what band was it? It must have been Metallica, Dan, where it was $200 for the nosebleeds.
Yeah.
And I said something about, man, I would not pay that much for a nosebleed. And he says, pay. I'll punch you right now if you want. It's like
$135 for the nosebleeds on this one.
Ooh.
Before convenience charges. So actually probably like $150. And then oddly, there's a back row. If you buy tickets for the very, very last row, like the very, very last one way back in the nosebleeds, it jumps all the way down to like $70 or something. I'm like, why would just the last row cost that much? And then, wouldn't it suck to be the second to last? Like, oh, I'm already back. Plus, if I went back one seat, then I only have to pay like $70.
See, that's me. I'd rather be either as high up as I can be and not be able to see all the way to the stage, or as close as I can get. But when you have to start pinching pennies in the middle, it's like, really, man? You're 1 foot forward, and your ticket was $60 more than mine.
Yeah.
We've got a local amphitheater. We call it Riverport.
Mm-hmm.
It's changed names like 12 times because companies keep buying it.
Yeah, I mean, it's Verizon. It's been whatever.
Now it's Hollywood Casino Amphitheater.
What the fuck, Jeff? Really?
Yeah, seriously, that's what it's called.
The grass used to be free. You could go and sit in the grass. You couldn't even see the stage, but you could hear the PA.
Huh.
It's been about 5 years, I think, since it was free, and now I think the cheapest grass I've seen is $45.
Really?
It's like somebody looked at the grass one day and said, we got to pay somebody to upkeep that. Why aren't we charging for this?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the hard part, like, for me, because, like, we talk about, on our show, we talk about a really good combination of well-known bands as well as, like, more obscure stuff. And so I'm used to going to shows, ever since I was a teenager until now, I'm used to going to like hardcore and punk shows and like metal show, like death metal shows and stuff, and it was like $15 at the door, like that sort of stuff. So whenever we started this podcast, we were like, well, we need to start going and seeing these concerts because it's it's good press or whatever. And like I'm looking at some of these ticket prices and I'm just like, holy shit, like anything above $50, I'm like, oh my god, are you kidding me? So to see some of these bands and like the people will pay it like $400 to get super up close and stuff, and I'm like, what are the nosebleeds look like? And so when we show up and do the podcast the next day, it's like, yeah, they looked like ants, but they sounded really good. It's just funny to me seeing some of these prices, but especially for a band like Judas Priest, who, I mean, historically, have they ever had a tour that wasn't like all the butts are in the seats?
I mean, it was just with Ripper. I think they're playing smaller venues. I don't know if they did all the time, but I know the Electric Factory, is which I love it when bands go there, or go to small places, because I just love being up close. But it's rare. It's really tough to do when it's a big band like Judas Priest. I had pretty decent seats for this one. Like not the best, but definitely not the worst. Like probably like 30 to 40 rows from stage, I think.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's not bad. You get to see everything. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely had a good, clear view and everything like that.
So in a modification to my previous question that we're going to keep a secret, what song did you want to hear?
Let's see. You know what? I'm trying to remember if they played anything from Redeemer of Souls. I haven't. Yeah, I don't know, because I've seen him so many times. There isn't really like anything that I was like, like there's no disappointments with anything. It's like I don't care what they play because but
you weren't pissed off at any point. Yeah.
Oh, no, yeah.
Holy shit! It's 2018, and I'm watching Judas Priest.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not really sure because I could probably think of like a bunch of stuff, but I'm trying to think of something that I haven't seen them play at all, like ever. Yeah, actually, you know what? I've never heard him play One Shot at Glory. That would have been really awesome.
Nice.
They played Painkiller, right? I mean, I assume they played Painkiller because that's my favorite Judas Priest song. So.
Yeah, it's like the most demanding with the vocals.
Yeah.
But he still pulls through with it.
That's crazy to me. I remember we were playing. What were you playing? Was it Rock Band or Guitar Hero? And I was trying to sing Painkiller. Oh my god! Like that, my throat still hurts from that. That was years ago. Like that was.
I
wasn't
wouldn't
there
even
for
know
that.
like how to even try.
Well, I couldn't do the falsettos. There's a band called Death that I'm a huge fan of. They did a cover of Painkiller, so whenever I sang it, I did the Death vocals, which is more of just like screaming than it is like the falsetto, like the really good, I wouldn't say Rob Halford's voice is clean because it's pretty gritty in places, but like, yeah, so I avoided the falsettos. And even then, though, the performance that the other band did when they were covering the song was still so astronomically over the top that like you could barely keep up with it. And even their version doesn't sound as good as the Priest version because cover songs never do,
It's the only time that I'm going to say that I like a cover song more than the original artist. And I know that's taboo because this is the Judas Priest episode, but the Death cover of Painkiller is the best cover I've ever heard in my life.
Oh, really?
Well, he did it really good. I mean, because this is a singer that predominantly, the band Death, they're like credited as being like one of the first death metal bands. So like most of this guy's delivery is always like, it's cool, but it's not like in the style of Judas Priest. So to hear them actually pull off a decent Judas Priest cover was pretty mind-blowing. Like for that band, like you had no idea that the guy could sound like that he had any kind of, you never had a hint that it was going to go in that direction. So when they dropped that cover song, it was like it was a big holy shit moment. Like,
yeah, totally mind-blowing. Yeah, if you get an opportunity and you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend it. I mean, it's definitely it's a harder, edgier take on Painkiller, but it's still
it's not already hard and edgy enough.
Oh, I know, right?
If you can't, they seriously like cranked it up to 11. It's unbelievable on what it sounds like.
It's not what you're expecting.
No, especially if you've heard other things that Death has done. It's like what Dan has said. I mean, it's real, growled, screamed, and guttural vocals, and then all of a sudden, this guy can sing. And you're like, holy shit! And it was really good. But yeah, Painkiller is one of my favorite Priest songs. I actually, surprisingly, this week I spent a ton of time listening to the old stuff, like old stuff from the 70s.
What I love about them is how they change over all the decades. Like 70s Priest sounds so different than 80s and current.
It sounds like a mix between Sabbath and Pink Floyd.
Yeah, and the Sabbath definitely makes a lot of sense because they, both from Birmingham. And actually, since you brought that up, there's a song on there on the new one. Not just because it's called "Children of the Sun," because Sabbath has a lot of children of the songs, like "Children of the Grave," "Children of the Sea," but "Children of the Sun" has this riff that reminds me of Sabbath.
Yeah, it's a good song. This new album is just I'm still blown away on just how complete it is. I mean, it's good for the
58 minutes. Doesn't drag.
It's a long album, yeah. And, a lot of these bands now, they're going for like longer albums, like if not like double albums.
You mentioned all the different eras of Judas Priest and how they changed over the decades. Mm-hmm. What did you find first?
Well, the first one I heard was British Steel, so that's pretty, not out of the ordinary at all, because one of my friends got the British Steel album, and then I think then he got Painkiller, and he showed me that. He's like, "Oh, James, you got to hear this," and I'm like, "Is this the same band?" Like,
it's like 100 times more aggressive. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is the same singer? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, geez, like he's like going so high with his voice. And then I think that the first album I actually bought myself was it was Metalworks. It was the greatest hits or whatever you want to call it, compilation, anthology, whatever it is. And it was like a 2-disc set that had just like a pretty like random collection of songs, on it. I mean, it had most of the ones you'd expect maybe, but there was like a lot of like more obscure choices. And so that was how I started. But then I slowly started just like getting all the albums, and it took me a long time. It wasn't something that happened quickly at all. I think by the time I first got into Priest and by the time I actually got all their albums, it was probably like a good 10-year span at least.
What is it? It's like 19 albums, isn't it? No?
I think this one was the 18th.
Or is it the 18th?
Was the 18th,
okay.
Yeah. So even if this was 10 years ago, you still had 20 years ago, you still had a hell of a job ahead of you to find, It's like when you're just getting into Iron Maiden or just getting into Metallica or Black Sabbath. Like, it takes forever to find all of that stuff.
It does, yeah.
And then when you factor in B-sides and singles and all that other jazz, it's really easy to go down the rabbit hole. There's so much stuff. So do you got any like cool box sets or anything like that for them?
Oh, for Priest?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I pretty much just bought the albums like one at a time. But I know they put out like some cool, like there's like that Metology one. And there was that one, I don't know if it was the same thing, but do you remember that one with the CDs that they all go together and they make like a image?
Yeah.
It's like Judas Priest across them. Yeah, it's a hard band. Like they have so many good, so much good material over the decades. It's really hard to like introduce somebody to them and be like, well, where do you start? It's pretty tough. Like I mean, I would make like a compilation. I'd be like, hey, look, here's like 5 CDs, like 5 CDs narrowed like down from like 19 albums, 18 albums.
That would be a long episode of Playlist Junkie.
Right?
Yeah. It would.
All right, guys, we're just going to do the whole albums. Yeah.
Well, that's the fun thing about him is that, like you talked about how they changed with the times. I mean, it's almost like if you introduced it to somebody, you're like, well, which Judas Priest do you want to start with first? I mean, because there's so many different styles that they encompass. I mean, it just shows how good of musicians they are, that they're not doing the same thing over and over and over again. That they expanded, they grew, and they really didn't have very many in the way of false steps like a lot of other bands who try to keep up. I think they've always done a really good job of staying up to speed. And you can't say that about everybody.
Yeah, they definitely keep up with the times. I wonder, let's see, like any like recommendations for people, like even if you just go by albums. On that metal show when they do the top 5s.
Yeah,
Those are top 5 like recommendation. They debate over it and everything. like what would you think if you had to do a top 5 Priest albums?
Number 1, Painkiller.
That's my favorite too. Yeah.
Are we all in agreement?
Oh, well, okay.
Oh, God.
I like Painkiller. I love it. It's my favorite song, but like the song Painkiller. However, I would have to say that really you can't start with Judas Priest truly and get a good idea of what the band is without starting with British Steel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually in agreement with Dan. I think I would start with British Steel too, because that was my first introduction to them. Mm-hmm. And I think we've talked about it with other bands' discographies. It seems like whatever you're introduced to first, it tends to be what you want to go back to. Mm-hmm. And for me, that was it. I would have to say Painkiller is a very, very, very close second.
We're talking like a percentage of different, like 1% different.
Yeah.
It's hard to edge one out over the other.
I think my personal favorite is always going to be Painkiller, but to start somebody off with one, British Steel is probably the best starter album. But then once you get past those two, then it gets pretty debatable. But I'd probably go Screaming for Vengeance.
Now Firepower. It has to be Firepower now.
Firepower's in my top 5.
Oh, what about Ram It Down?
That's a good one.
I mean, that's one of my favorites as well, and I think that one's just as aggressive, you know. It's not my favorite Judas Priest album, but like as far as like aggressiveness, like showing where the band was going to go, because like we're talking about how amazed we were that Firepower sounds modern and sounds really aggressive, and I thought Ram It Down was you know, for the time, that same step up of aggression, and obviously with Painkiller it was even more ridiculous than that. But like
first one with Scott Travis, Down. Once the drumming definitely changes the feel of it. Like I think once they got a different drummer, it definitely took it more in like a heavier, you know, path.
Yeah, they started taking influence of other bands from that time period. You know. Yeah,
like they had their 80s, you know, like glam rock, you know, turbo phase, and like then they had their you know, their heavy. I think Victim of Changes is also got to be up there. The album, Jesus Christ, why am I'm blanking on the album title? Help me out with the album title. What, the one that has Victim of Changes and Tyrant and Genocide and Sad Wings of Destiny? That's what it is.
Sad Wings of Destiny.
Sad Wings of Death.
I can't. For some reason, I always call that record Destiny. I don't know.
Okay.
Laziness, I guess. But
the trident. It's got the angel with the trident on the necklace.
And here I thought that I was going to be all hipster and cool, and mention that one, and you beat me to it.
See the one no one's mentioned yet, which is number 3 on my list of what I would give a new listener: Hellbent for Leather.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Nobody brings that up. They know they think they remember the song, but they don't ever listen to the album. And for me,
oh my God, it's got Evening Star, and that has the Green Man Alicia, which is a cover of Fleetwood Mac song, which is odd. But I always think of it as a Priest song, though.
I mentally rope it in with British Steel. Like, to me, it's the same record, even though I know it's not.
Yeah, I think that's why, because when you talk about British Steel, it somehow made it easy to forget. So I'm glad you brought that one up, because like I think that's it's definitely up there.
That's the first Priest I ever heard. My mother was listening to Ziggy Stardust, Black Sabbath, and Hellbent for Leather. So for me, that will always stand out as, I like this band. This is kind of cool. And then Billy Idol came along a little later, and I was listening to that, and I said, this guy clearly wanted to be everybody.
I just remembered one that, like, if you count live albums, Unleashed in the East, because that's one that gets brought up a lot, but I always forget about it because I'm like, if you're counting live albums, sure. But also, there's something odd about the album. I think they didn't they recorded part of it in a studio or something. Did you guys know anything about it?
They overdubbed it. Basically, what they did is they recorded the live album. And you know how every band is, even though we think it sounds awesome, they're like, no, we fucked this up, we fucked this up, we fucked this up. So they went in and basically fixed it in the studio. And I know that there was a lot of controversy about that. I don't see it. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with a band feeling like they need to release the best sounding product that they can, and if they have the option to do that. I'm not sure if it's something that I would do if I was in a band, but I for the most part, I think I love the way Unleashed in the East sounded, and when I'm listening to it, I don't hear they overdubbed that or they fixed that. You know what I mean? So as a listener who wasn't at the concert, I don't think it really matters in the grand scheme of things because I'm listening to it and I'm enjoying what I'm hearing. And, Judas Priest isn't one of those bands that I'm going to sit there and say that, they have to fix all their live stuff because it sucks. That's clearly not the case,
Well, that was the whole controversy because, when Kiss did the first big live album, they overdubbed the audience and overdubbed some parts and everybody threw a fit about it. And I thought about it later and I said, well, is the purpose of a live album to give you a glimpse into what a live show sounds like? Because if it is, they've achieved that. But all those mistakes and things that they didn't fix or that they did fix, if they didn't go back later and fix those things, most people would say, why am I paying for this? This is nothing better than a bootleg. It's like, well, which do you want? Do you want the feeling of a live show, or do you want a bootleg? Some people like bootlegs. I know every Fish fan does, and I know Nirvana had the famous bootleg for years that finally got remastered and released. And
still sounded like shit. But yeah, no, I don't think it was taboo back then though. People started criticizing it then, But I mean, Unleashed in the East is for me, like I'm not a big fan of live albums. I'm much more of just like I just want to listen to the studio version. If I want to see it live, I'll pay to go see the band live. But Unleashed in the East was one of those things where I wasn't that familiar with Judas Priest, and I remember a guy, dubbed me a tape of it, and so that was for a lot of those songs. Those were the first time that I ever heard it. So that recording just has a little bit of a special amount of nostalgia for me. So I'm not going to let somebody talk shit on it because it was, overdubbed or they fixed it or whatever. A lot of bands do that. They're just not as obvious about it.
Yeah. I generally, though, it's a great album, but it sounds like I wouldn't know it was a live album, even if if I just heard it, I'd be like, oh, these just sound kind of like demo recording, but like really awesome demos of songs without like a lot of production in it. It's almost a studio album because it sounds so good. But I like to feel like I'm at the concert, so I like to hear the crowd noise and everything. And a lot of the 70s live albums, like Deep Purple, Made in Japan, something about the way they recorded live albums in the 70s, they just don't capture the crowd as much.
Right.
You hear it sometimes, but it's like you don't feel surrounded when you're listening to it. I don't feel like I'm really there. I still feel like I'm listening, to an album. But one of my favorites, just for a good example, is Black Sabbath Reunion. You really feel like you're there when you hear that.
That's my favorite live record. It sounds like a show.
It does, yeah.
Parts of it bother me because it almost sounds like the microphones are too far away from the band. But when Ozzy says, "Ladies and gentlemen, Tony Iommi," and it sounds like I'm sitting in the audience listening to Tony just play for the next 5 minutes.
Yeah. That might be the trick. Like what you just said. It sounds like you're not. It doesn't sound like you're right there on the stage. It sounds like you're in the crowd. Like you're hearing it from, the middle of the room. So maybe that has something to do with how they recorded it. I'm not sure. There's a little bit I don't know. You're hearing some more the reverb. There's more you can actually hear the shape of the room. But something like Unleashed in the East, it sounds more like you just plugged it in and then that you're hearing it right off of the,
It's a board recording, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, we're going to start adding artificial crowd noise to all of our podcasts going forward.
Right, because all these people.
We're going to be the first stadium podcast.
Yeah, maybe in 20 years, yeah. But
I think Kevin Smith already.
Yeah, Kevin Smith's already got the lock on that. Yeah. But one of my favorite live albums is the Iron Maiden Live After Death.
Ooh, very nice.
I got the dual LP. I actually got it at Goodwill for $2, and I was thrilled. And but yeah, that one's a lot of crowd noise and a lot of if you have a good speaker system set up, it definitely has the same appeal, and that you're getting the whole dynamic range of what you would have heard that night. And and I really, really enjoyed that about it. But did we ever make it to 5 albums on our recommendations?
Oh, I think we did. We got British Steel, Painkiller, Screaming for Vengeance, Sad Wings of Destiny, Hellbent for Leather. But we also mentioned that Firepower is up there.
Well, you could show Firepower to somebody that never heard Judas Priest, and
yeah.
It's still a great introduction to the band. It's almost a return to form. It's not like this is, hey guys, it's not some lofty concept album or some weird thing. You can just pop Firepower on and people are into it.
Yeah.
You don't have to know anything.
So there's really no rule book. To start. You could really start with almost any of them. Yeah.
Maybe not Rock-a-Rolla.
Rock-a-Rolla is the one that even the band just doesn't care much about. They played not last night, but they played Never Satisfied finally during some of their recent shows. But
you almost gave away the secret there, James.
What's up?
You almost gave away the secret.
Well, I said didn't play anything from Rock-a-Rolla, so I guess you go by process of elimination.
I'm taking notes.
That'd take a while.
So I knocked one album off then. No, I like Rock-a-Rolla though. I remember it had that weird. It had 2 covers for it. One of them was, oh my god! Do you guys know about the whole cover thing?
I know there's a Coca-Cola version where it looks like Coca-Cola.
Yeah, they did one that was like Coca-Cola, and it just says, Rock-a-Rolla. But then they went back and they're like, well, that doesn't really fit their, image now. So they did this other one. But I'm gonna say there is a, oh my god! See, now I'm trying to remember this. There was a TurboGrafx 16 game or something. I'm gonna look this up right now. That had the exact same image.
That was the more epic image, right? The one that was looked like a painting of like this. Was that the one that had like the big muscly dude on it?
It's sort of like I'll bring it up right now. It's like a weird sort of I don't even know what, like a gargoyle almost with like a sword, but it's sort of like a cyborg.
Okay.
It's like holding on to a missile.
It's like a cyborg chimera holding missiles and a sword and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, it's cool. What is the game though? I want to figure out what that was because I know I've seen it as a cover of like some video game, and this is gonna drive me nuts if I don't find this.
It's on a race now to see who finds it first.
Yeah, and if it was a TurboGrafx one, that's going to be more obscure to find.
Yeah. I didn't remember if it was TurboGrafx, but the game is called Ballistics.
Ballistics, okay.
And it's it's for the Amiga and Atari ST.
Oh, okay.
It was converted to a number of other home computers, like the PC Engine, TurboGrafx 16. So yeah, if you look up Ballistics,
yeah, he's got it pulled up right now, and it
looks like Blaster Master almost.
Yeah, it is the same image.
It's the exact cover image. Was originally used for a novel, The Steel Tsar, and then they also used it for the reissue of Rock-a-Rolla. It is weird.
Now, was this a copyright thing, or you think the artist just licensed it to? Look to Judas Priest, and in the 70s, and then, licensed it to this game company, 20 years later. It's not crazy.
Yeah.
But.
So it's, I want to get the book, the game, and the vinyl record of Rock-a-Rolla and put them all up on my wall to all
Yeah. I wonder if the game's any good. It looks kind of good from some of the screenshots I've seen, but I'll check that out later. That's interesting. I did not know that there was a game with that cover, because my cover is just the bottle cap,
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely not my favorite Judas Priest record, but again, I'm the death metal guy in the room, so once you start going that far back in sound, that's whenever I start to lose a little bit of interest. But
I just liked how much it showed how dynamic he was vocally, because there's a lot of that stuff he sounds like a baritone.
Yeah,
in the earlier stuff. And you're like, dude, this is the guy later on, that's screeching out these ear-splitting, vocals in Painkiller.
Yeah, even Sad-Wings of Destiny was like the highest, I think, his voice. Like some of those 70s albums, like he sings so ridiculously high. Like on the song The Ripper.
And, that's a good song.
Yeah, like
is that where Tim got his nickname?
Absolutely.
Had to be.
Yeah,
okay.
I think because when they auditioned with him, one of the first songs he auditioned with Priest was The Ripper. Not the first song, but one of them. And then he just kind of got the nickname.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to go home and watch that cheesy, terrible movie that's loosely based on the story.
Rockstar. I heard about that. I've only heard bad things about it too.
I'm gonna tell you, those people are elitist. If you just want some cheesy schlock, it's a great movie.
Well, yeah, and the band disowns it because it makes them look like assholes.
Oh, and it totally makes them look like assholes.
Even Tim the Ripper Owen said even if it's loosely based on him or not, he's like, it's completely misrepresented, for how it really was. He's like, I don't have a problem with Rob Halford, or anything like that,
Oh, really? They made it into like it was like a rivalry or something?
A little bit, yeah. They inferred more stuff, made implications, that it was like that.
All right, I'll put it to you this way. Rockstar is a chick flick.
Do they call him Tim the Ripper Owens, or is it like just
They don't use any of the names, and it's Mark Wahlberg is actually playing Tim.
I think they actually couldn't. I think it was one of those, like, it started off as, hey, we're going to make this cool movie about Tim the Ripper Owens, and I think everybody was on board. They're like, oh, yeah, that'd be cool. And then once they started reading the script and getting the ideas, I think everybody involved with the band started backing up real slowly, towards the door.
I don't think slow was involved. I think it was hell no.
Yeah.
If you've never seen it, it's worth a watch.
Yeah, it's fun. It's cheesy. Like I said, it is total cheesy schlock. But if you don't mind, tuning in and then turning your brain off, it's perfectly fine. It's definitely that kind of movie.
I don't know where to go from that. Sorry, man.
That's my bad.
You turned my brain off during that. Like Firepower, like I just want to throw out there that, like, I wasn't expecting it to be as aggressive as it was. Mm-hmm. And, like, because we were talking about the guitarist and having to switch up the guitarists and everything, for the live show and everything. And it makes sense in the sense that a lot of bands that are from the same time period as Judas Priest are not rocking as hard as they were in the 80s. They're not rocking, and that's true of most heavy bands, in that they start off really aggressive. And it's weird with Judas Priest in the fact that they almost seem, as they go on, to become more and more aggressive. Yeah. So, like, every time they put out a new release, I'm like, oh shit, what's this going to sound like? Because I'm waiting for the come down, and I haven't gotten that yet. I mean, it's always just been, kick your ass, in your face kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, they've just done, like, every style of metal, like, just about.
Yeah, that was one of the things about this record, too, I liked, is that one thing I like about Judas Priest a lot is the lyrics. Because it's so, like, there's a lot of bands that just want to talk about Tolkien, or they want to talk about all these, like, power metal concepts of elves and dwarves and stuff. What I like about Judas Priest, and it's still evident on Firepower, too, is that whole, like, mixture of just, like biology and technology, like the you like the cyborg metal, like they always incorporates the concept of metals and things in. And so to hear a song like Firepower, where it's all about heavy weaponry and and like talking about like flamethrowers and
neutralize. I've never neutralized in a song.
Yeah, and it's awesome. Like it's like like I think the only thing that was like really like kind of more like magic-y and stuff was like the Necromancer, but like you're still it's 2018 and we're still getting lyrics about flamethrowers, firing guns. This like it kind of creates this image of like this apocalyptic landscape. It's basically like future 80s, like what people thought the future was going to be like in the 80s.
Yeah. How weird is it that do you guys listen to Visigoth? Yeah, I love them. They're great. There's a metal band out of Utah that's kind of doing that type of thing, as like Maiden and Priest, and and kind of going into like the fantasy stuff with like Dungeons and Dragons and that type of thing. But they just came out with their second album just in like February, probably no more than a month before the Firepower came out, and both of these albums have a song on them called Traitor's Gate. What is the chance of two bands releasing a song called Traitor's Gate within the same month span?
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Sounds like a little Four Horsemen mechanic situation going on there.
Yeah, maybe. No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
The songs are totally different, but
right.
Yeah, but yeah, they're really awesome if you check them out. Visigoth.
Yeah, he's playing them right now. I don't know if we told you this, but whenever we do our podcast, he always has the band or the music or whatever playing in our headphones while we talk.
And, I guess you're rocking out, with it and everything.
That's why we always seem so excited, because we're like getting all amped up for everything.
You see the occasional drum solo pop out of me,
right? Yeah,
yeah. That's why the Rob Zombie episode, I was really rocking out.
Oh my god, we were so pumped up during that episode because it's like his music was so driving, like the whole time. And actually, this band's pretty cool. I'm gonna have to check them out later. Visigoth. Yeah. How many albums do they have? 2?
2 now.
Okay.
Yeah, a good song to start with is called Dungeon Master.
Okay.
Really good.
What are your final thoughts on Judas Priest?
Yeah, I don't know. Something about Judas Priest just makes me feel alive. I don't know what it is, but I think you mentioned something about the lyrics. and just something like, first of all, it's just the fact that they have such a big catalog, and it differs. Like that, you have a lot of range with the type of music they do. Like what we talked about before, that you could play two different songs and they don't even sound like the same band. So like if you're in a heavy mood, you can play the heavy stuff. I don't know. It's just something about it just is really something very driving, something very urgent. I don't know. How would you guys sum it up?
To go with the driving thing, it always kind of, especially being a predominantly heavy music fan, there's not really a point, at least in the past 20 years, that I can't put on a Priest album and just absolutely just rock out. You know what I mean? Like, we're talking like roll the windows down, turn the volume all the way up. I don't even care if it's cold outside. It's just one of those it's just one of those bands that they're instantly recognizable, to everyone that's into that kind of music. And it's hard to put it in a final thought because I still can't, I'm listening to Firepower and I still am having trouble getting over how good it is. Because we've listened to all these bands, we've done all these discographies, we've done all of it, and to hear and we always get to a point in our discussions where we talk about the come down and when the band stopped being great, or whenever they stopped. I just have never encountered that with Judas Priest, and it's just a testament to how great of musicians they really are. And I think it's really cool that it sucks with the whole Parkinson's thing, but it is kind of neat that the band's going to go on tour. They're going to do all this stuff, and dude's sitting at home writing the next album, and he is the kind of the mastermind of their sound at this point. So I think it's really cool. I think we can expect really good ideas to keep coming from the band. I don't see them stopping. I don't think they're going to have a farewell tour anytime soon.
Oddly, they kind of did once, but then they immediately just kind of ignored it, and that right. Pretend we never said that. It was the Epitaph tour, and it was going to be the last one with KK Downing, and I think he bailed out before they could do the tour, and then for his own personal reasons, I'm not even sure what it was, but I guess it was just a personal thing. He was just kind of done with it. And then they got Richie Faulkner in, and they got this guy just seemed like out of nowhere, and he's amazing. And then he revitalized the band so much that I think once they got him in there, then they were like, okay, well, we can keep on going. So that Epitaph tour was not at all the final tour, because they've already, since then, they put out Redeemer of Souls, and now Firepower. They've been more active now than ever, it seems.
Yeah. Like a new band almost, yeah.
Yeah, what band says we're going to call it quits and then just starts doing more than they've ever done?
Right.
I'm not complaining.
It's just what happens when you figure out that you were doing something before that wasn't working, and then you figure out what the missing piece was, and you start realizing, hey man, there's nothing stopping us from keeping on doing this. You hear that story a lot of times. So that's why I think it's interesting to see if Slayer sticks to the farewell, if they're really done or not.
Oh, Ozzy! I'm seeing Ozzy's farewell tour. So we'll see. They're actually calling it the No More Tours 2, because the first time he did,
nice.
In the one in 91 or 92.
Right.
He's going to be the heavy metal Terry Funk. He retires from wrestling 17 times.
Nice.
Jeff, your final thoughts?
Well, I think you kind of hit on it earlier. They just kind of encompass so much, and I think that's why I like them and appreciate them so much. It's pretty easy. If you're willing to take the time, you can find something for whatever mood you're in, because they have such a massive catalog. They're so prolific, they're so varied, and they're so talented. You will find anything for any mood. And I think that's why I like them so much. And I also love the fact that these guys are, 60s plus. It's still kicking ass and taking names, because when I'm in my 60s, I want to think that I can, I'm still a badass just like these guys are. Because Firepower, holy shit. How go find your grandpa, and say, hey, grandpa, check this out, or dad, we're old enough to be our dad.
If we're being honest, it's our dad. Yeah,
to be our dads and go, do you still kick ass, Dad? Well, I tried to, but I pulled my back out when I was trying. And I'm like, well, check this shit out. This is awesome.
And the album is in caps. You notice that it's Firepower spelled all in capitals.
Yeah, right.
It's like
so they're like an old person on Facebook.
Oh, jeez.
You think that's what it was? They just had the caps lock on.
Well,
This looks good. Yeah.
isn't that the YouTube thing now? You have to make everything capital so everybody reads it.
Yeah, I like how there's no subtlety on any. No subtlety. The album cover is probably the least subtle of anything they've ever done.
I know.
There's so much like ammunition being blasted that the entire album.
Yeah, it
is filled with firepower.
Quite literally.
Like, what the hell is it anyway? It's like some robot.
Well, of course it is. It's a Judas Priest cover.
When I first saw the cover, I don't think I liked it. The first second I saw it, I'm like, wait, that can't be it. But then I started staring at it, and I was like, wait a minute, no, this is the best thing ever.
Yeah. It looks exactly how it sounds.
It does. Yeah. Yeah, it starts right up like they don't, they did like that thunder and lightning thing on Redeemer Souls, but this time they were like, oh, look, let's just start with the music. Like, you don't even get a chance to like brace yourself. It just starts up.
Yeah, it kicks ass. I mean, it's just whenever I heard that, because I expected to pop it in, and I was going to listen to at least a minute long, little diddly intro or something. No, fuck no. It's just just right out of the gate.
Fuck it, I'm playing Firepower again.
Yeah, you play it as many times as you think the copyright lawyers will let us.
You get a guitar solo within like the first minute and a half.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
All right, Joe, what's your final thoughts?
Yeah, Joe, sorry. We're just geeking out over here.
I think Judas Priest is the flag bearer of heavy metal. I have always thought that. I think whenever you stack up the main players, yes, Black Sabbath is heavy as fuck, and they started all of this. And when you get over here with Dio and you talk about vocals, Priest has been there the whole time, and every time somebody else takes up the metal arm, and you think, okay, we're going to move on from here. Slayer's going to be heavy and brutal. Napalm Death is going to growl and be grindcore. And Metallica is going to keep writing songs and selling platinum albums for decades or until somebody gives out finally. But Priest keeps just, no, this is mine. And they pick it right back up, and they're still fucking heavy. And they've always been heavy. And every time they've put out an album, they've set a new standard of heavy. So they've kind of driven the change as well as championed the change over the past few decades. And I'm glad they're still here. And everybody needs to go listen to Firepower.
Yeah. And, also, I've noticed when you said that Black Sabbath, they retired now. So that makes Judas Priest the longest running, heavy metal band, that's still going.
They're still standing at the end of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, James, do you have an album of the week? Or are we just all going to say it's Firepower?
All right.
What else? Actually, yeah, if I'm going to pick another one, it's the new Visigoth album. It's, I think it's called The Conqueror's Oath or something like that. Yeah, but you'll find it. It's got a great single called Warrior Queen. So if you want to check out one song to start with, look up the video for Warrior Queen.
Jeff, what about you?
City by a Strapping Young Lad.
Dan?
I knew you were going to ask me. That's why I asked Jeff.
Yeah, and I gave it too fast.
See, I've been listening to Firepower all week, and so it's like really hard to... I didn't even go back and listen to a lot of the old Priest stuff because I just kept wanting to listen to Firepower. So yeah, I guess that's my album of the week, as dumb as that is.
That's not dumb. It's great.
It is. It's just... We're supposed to think of something trendy and cool to say during this segment, but, I've been listening to Firepower. That's my album of the week. What am I going to do?
Painkiller will always live in my CD tray in my car. As long as I have a CD player, there will be a copy of Painkiller in it. Painkiller is my album of the week.
Well, that makes me feel a little bit better.
Album of my life.
Album of life.
Album of life, yeah. I'm so glad because we originally were just going to do our normal thing. We were going to record album by album reviews of every single record, and that would have taken fucking ever, and basically whenever you were like, well, they got a new album coming out in March, like that, it makes the episode so much more interesting having that.
Yeah. It's cool that it's not even a week old. Like, I've never done anything like this where, like, I've talked about something so current. So I think this is really cool.
Well, James, we love having you on, man. I'll definitely keep you in the loop as far as bands and stuff that we want to talk about, and see if you're interested in any of it. But definitely when that Visigoth band gets to like 3 albums or so, we'll definitely probably want to talk about them, because from the stuff that Joe played, we're definitely
we were digging it big time.
Yeah. So
nice. Yeah, I have a feeling that they I hope they get bigger, because I feel like they're a band that they deserve to get some more attention, because not a lot of people know about them right now.
Yeah, they got a good power, at least the couple tracks we heard, digging the power metal vocals.
Yeah,
quite a bit.
Well, I just love the name Visigoth. I mean, that's kind of got that historical ring to it, like Saxon did,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's really cool. James, thank you so much, man.
Sure.
Like I said, I'll keep you in the loop on everything. I'll send you the link tonight or whatever, but you'll probably see it on Twitter anyway, in the morning.
Okay.
We like to blast it out there, so.
Okay, cool.
Very, very cool.
So tell me about this band Polybius.
Right,
yeah.
Yikes.
Okay, see you guys.
All right, we'll see you, James.
Thanks for being on.
All right. Yeah.
Later.
This has been episode 55 of Discography Discussion. Thank you for listening. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at discussmetal. Subscribe to our podcast everywhere you listen to podcasts, including Google Play, iTunes, and Stitcher. Visit discussmetal.com for all things discography discussion, and please send questions and comments to danandjoeshow@gmail.com. If you are not a patron, you can become one at patreon.com/discussmetal. We have some sweet perks. James Rolfe from Cinemassacre. No amount of thank yous will justify the effort. See you in the future.
Yeah, I'm a big Christopher Lee fan. And he was a big fan of metal up until the day that he passed.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking like, what since we talk about Priest just getting heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier, and I'm like, so
and Richie Faulkner did some of that, so they actually overlap.
Yeah.
So there's your connection from Christopher Lee to Priest.
Yeah. I'm
interview. Bob Halford does a really good Christopher Lee impression.
Oh, does he really? I gotta hear that.
Oh yeah. That's awesome.